Elon Musk runs a variety of international businesses, and maybe his ties to China are too scary if you want to be dishonest and disrespectful and really ignore the facts. Bringing on someone who is all of those things, no wait, an expert on all of those things. It's Randy Kirk. I'm Brian. Welcome to Future Rasa.
Well, you tried to get another April Fool's joke in with regard to honesty and respect and something. I'm not sure. How did that work?
Yes. No, I just spoke wrong. I spoke wrong.
I see.
People, in the comments sometimes I'll see on your channel say, maybe Brian's not the best choice. And on my channel say, maybe Randy's not the best choice. But the truth is we disagree on a lot of things. And that's what makes the conversation valuable, I think.
When did we ever disagree?
Well,
I remember one time that you were talking about who was better looking, and we had disagreement there.
Yeah, I was like, it's definitely you, and you're like, no, it's all Brian. And I was like, listen here, smartass. So, welcome to the show. I suppose we should actually talk about what we're talking about.
Oh yeah.
So, this is very, very silly and disappointing. Elon Musk got special favors and access from China that could leave the company exposed. Leave him exposed. Did you know he was granted special favors to set up a Tesla plant in China? A report said. Real quick, was he?
Oh yeah, absolutely. There he was the first. Well, not individual, but his corporation, Tesla, the corporation, was the first company ever to be able to buy property and to build a building that had no CCP, partnership or arrangement or lease. It was an outright purchase, and this was a unique deal. Now, was it a favor or was it a negotiated deal? Yeah, it was one of those.
So I will clarify. They weren't allowed to buy the land. It's a 99-year lease, just like everyone else. And it's not that you have to do a partnership with the government of China. It's that you were required to do a partnership with a Chinese national. And that was because they didn't want companies coming in and just not bringing enough benefit. Tesla was the first to get this kind of package, but not the last. It was part of a new program that they were doing to actually attract the kind of companies that they wanted, the kind of companies that wouldn't do it otherwise. It leaves them exposed to leverage from Beijing. So, do you know what the tax deal was that Tesla got?
My recollection was that the tax deal was that they got a very, very good, I'm probably going to be way off on this. They got a very, very good loan.
Yes, they did.
Which they had to pay off within a certain amount of time. And then because of that loan, they had to pay some minimum amount of tax.
Okay, so you got all that right.
All right.
It was so one gold star so far. So right. What the deal was, we will make sure that you get the loan. And this is at a time when Tesla was not a sure thing, and you will get that loan at attractive rates. That was it. That was the whole thing. You do have to pay it back. If you don't, you have to pay it back.
Yes.
You must start paying taxes and pay an outrageous amount, with something like hundreds of millions by the end of a decade. Now, they've already paid that much because the factory worked. And if you don't build out the land, like you said, invest the money, like you said, we seize it, period. Right then and there, it's ours. So that doesn't sound like a very sweetheart deal. That sounds like a loan shark. And hey, man, maybe a loan shark gets you through to payday, but I don't see how that becomes that he owes them something. China offered Tesla perks, including low interest loans, a new emission credit policy that Tesla profited from. That wasn't a deal for Tesla. That was a nationwide requirement on everyone. Why? Okay. And changed ownership rules. And yes, they did do that, but Tesla was only the first, not the only. The plant now accounts for more than half of the deliveries. China's building an EV industry of its own. Okay, so there it is. There we go. U.S. lawmakers are concerned about Musk's dependence on China, particularly given his ownership of SpaceX, a satellite company with valuable Pentagon contracts. Musk has emphasized in the past that his companies are separate entities. Has he? Because I've heard him emphasize the opposite, that
Yeah,
that they're deeply interconnected.
right.
And you'll notice that U.S. lawmakers are only concerned during election years.
Yeah.
Have
Well,
you
and
noticed that?
let's start talking about how much they're concerned about Apple, maybe.
Right.
They're
Ford
basically,
and GM had plants in China for decades, and some of these US companies still do. Everyone has ties to China. That's the nature of China. So,
being the second largest economy in the world.
and being the factory of the world.
Right.
China was Tesla's savior. It's becoming its thorn. New York Times looks at Elon Musk's relationship with Beijing. Isn't it fun how I put these back to single source rumors? Because even though it's in all the biggest papers, their source is all the same. This one, yeah, Elon has China to thank for much of Tesla's success. I would agree. Would you?
Well, sure. I don't know whether Elon would have, well, yeah, he might have still gone into China even if he couldn't have gotten the special sweetheart deal on the ownership thing. Because everybody does, as you just pointed out. I mean, kind of, if you're going to be in the automobile industry, that's your second biggest market. So I'm not sure that that would have stopped him. Now, the sweetheart deal on the loan at a low interest rate, once again, he was able to raise capital pretty easily back in the day. So maybe would have had to go 6 months later or a year later. I don't know. I'm
Yeah. And I agree with you. And I would say that further to that, if not China, it would have gone somewhere else.
possibly,
Maybe
yes.
maybe it wouldn't have been as successful because again, China is the factory of the world. But yeah, the Shanghai plant was the solution. The facility's become a linchpin for the company, pumping out more than half of their global deliveries and the bulk of its profits. I like that that's in quotes because we don't actually know that.
No,
We
no.
believe that, but definitely leave some big, heavy quotation fingers on that. Plant built with no local partner, a change to national. It's just regurgitating the same
Right,
stuff
right.
again. The other article had some things saying, well, he's sharing some Beijing's the pro Taiwan thing. Yeah, I don't think that's because China told him to. I think that's because he personally believes that. I I at the risk of being demonetized in China, or as I call it, West Taiwan. I don't think that that's an issue that was foisted upon him. Could you imagine that conversation? He's in China. He's checking out Giga Shanghai. A minister comes up to him and says, "Yes, my division has told me to come speak to you. Can you make some pro Taiwan unification comments, please?" You betcha, my friend. I'd be happy to. That's that's so dumb. Am I missing
Yeah,
something there?
yeah. So I don't. I have a hard time believing that Elon makes any of his statements based on pressure. Because if he was making statements based on pressure, I think that he would be making far different statements than he makes on a daily basis. He could kowtow to the radicals on either end of the political spectrum. He could decide to stop making comments, which might be the best thing he could do in terms of getting his sales up. He has made comments about Spain, and I mean, to just go around the world. And I think he pretty much just says what it is he believes based on. See, one thing I think people forget about Elon is he's a massive reader. He is somebody who read the encyclopedia as a child. That was a fun thing for him, was to read the encyclopedia from cover to cover. He's read history and the history of warfare deeply. And most people don't read history ever, much less the history of warfare. So when he makes all the statements that he makes about these international situations, I believe that he thinks, and he probably is right, that he has a greater depth of understanding about these things than 99.9% of even the experts
Well, I wouldn't go as far as 99.9. He certainly has a better command of the source material than the average person, but bear in mind the average person is not all that bright. I would say that he has areas of expertise and global geopolitics. I'm not sure is in his wheelhouse. I have seen some things that make me scratch my head and say, maybe stick with engineering. But here's the real concern, Randy. The Times on Wednesday cited former employees, diplomats, and policymakers who described Musk's symbiotic relationship with the government. Let's unpack that because there's some real deception here.
Symbiotic with the government of?
Well, with China's
Oh,
government.
China. Okay.
But symbiotic doesn't equal beholden to.
No.
That's not what that means.
Sure.
If anything, China should be arguing that Musk's relationship with the US is much too close because he is a satellite launch provider for satellites that surely will be spying on China. So
and China definitely has indicated some concerns about Elon's relationship with the military and with the government in the United States. There's no doubt about it. Yeah.
Yeah. And of course, you find the conspiracy theorists who hand wave away the criticism of their nonsense by saying, follow the money. So, okay, I've followed it. The Pentagon pays SpaceX.
Yeah.
I followed it. I found the money you were looking for. So that's very silly and very crazy and a little bit dumb. In the comments, I'd like to know, do you have concerns about Elon's very close relationship with China? And if so, can you help me understand why? Because I do not see it. Every company does business with China in one way or another, whether you're using...
do business with China. I today do business with China. I have an order on the way manufactured in China for my Amazon business. So it's a very common thing.
Yes, but you're beholden to this.
I am. Yeah.
That explains your pro Amazon. No, wait, that doesn't.
No, it doesn't.
But I'd like to understand it because there's a lot of fear mongering about China. And while some fear is healthy and reasonable, a lot of what I see goes way too far. So in the comments, what do we miss? What do we misunderstand? You got to tell us. We got to know. And like, subscribe, do the usual things. And for everybody else, stay tuned, stay juicy. And I cannot wait to hear from you clever robots in Shanghai